All right. Well, we are just at 7 o'clock Central Time here on Monday, April 8th. And I'm saying all of this because we always have a 5 minute delay right at the beginning of the recording. So you're always welcome to just go straight into the first 5 minutes. We just get on and get chatting. And we had an eclipse here in our part of the country. We're here in Texas, and Georgia Tech's assistant is on here too. But I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Sherry Naudine. I'm the owner of Collegiate Sports Advocate, and we like to bring on Monday nights different topics that are relating to where you're at right now in the process and things that are happening, and be a source of information for softball in general. Because tonight's conversation is not just going to be for prospective student athletes, but it's going to be about college and building a culture. And so when I was thinking about this, I really see and feel when we're working with our student athletes on picking a good destination, doing their decision grid towards the end, is really uncovering what a culture means. And what is it? It's not just all social media, and it's not building a culture just for the colleges, but also for where you're at. And my two guests here tonight I've known for quite some time, and both actually have some quality travel ball experience too. So when I'm asking them the questions, I would love for them to even touch on advice for the travel ball teams out there and the student athletes individually. So you might bring three different perspectives when I ask you the questions, like however much you can give from a college coach perspective without being in the compliance area, and then travel ball, and then individual, building a culture around yourself. What does your social media really say about you? So I wanted to start by introducing Josh Trevino. I was going to say Joshua because that's how your name is here. But Josh, I'd love for you to tell us about your background, your title, where you're at, and how you got where you're at.
Hi everyone. Sherry, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. You sound great.
Great, perfect. My name is Joshua Trevino. I am the pitching coach here at Texas State University. This is my second year here, but I spent time at Texas State in my undergrad as a student manager and volunteer assistant coach. So I've been at Texas State a combined probably close to 7 or 8 years now. I spent 1 year in between being a graduate assistant at Arizona State University when Trisha Ford was there. I did coach a travel ball team for a long time. We were Impact Gold, and then did something independent, and then finished out with Hot Shots before I came over. I got onto the sport because I'm from a softball family. I grew up lots of female athletes in my family. Both my parents have lots of siblings. They all had girls. They all played sports. My grandma was a pitcher. She taught everyone how to pitch. I fell in love with it, watching all these strong women strike people out, and I just wanted to do that. So I taught myself how to pitch at a very young age. Became a manager at Texas State when Cat Alshman was there because I wanted to learn more about pitching, and then kind of just never really looked back. And now I'm at Texas State, getting to do the best job in the world, and function within the best community ever.
That's fantastic. And I didn't know all that detail to your background. So this is awesome. And I do want to remind you guys as you join in at the bottom right, there is emojis that you can click on and give, some love to, or just, clap your hands, whatever works for you. But that is just a little thing that we do here on the live program just to give some support to our speakers. So next is assistant coach at Georgia Tech, Hunter Bunch.
Uh, yes, ma'am. My name's Hunter, obviously. I started my softball journey, I would say, about 6.5 years ago. I started with Casey Jackson at Impact Gold, and went to the Bombers organization, and then ran into Miss Sherry as a travel ball coach. And then I got to Incarnate Word, where Miss Sherry and I were pretty tight knit, and ended up at Georgia Tech this year. And I'm the hitting coach and recruiting coordinator at Georgia Tech, and yeah, I don't have a prestigious background like Josh, but I work hard, and yeah, that's all I got to say about myself.
So
I
whatever,
love it.
Hunter. Whatever. We have the same background.
I tried to just throw the jab. That's all it was. Just a jab.
That's awesome. I think we're gonna have a good call here tonight. And if you guys would all tweet out to your audience and let them know we've got this going on, I think it's going to be a fun and refreshing topic. And I think you're going to learn a lot. And you can also private message me up on the DMs if you want to chat and say something. Because again, I can't bring you off mute because they are Division 1 softball coaches. So I do have some compliance issues I have to stick with. So, the first question, and we can go around here, is describe what a team culture means to you. And do you make a plan for it at the university, or do you make it as an individual, or both? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Josh, go first.
In my own opinion, and also being having been a part of two programs, so I feel both have really strong cultures. I think culture can be designed as the philosophy and fundamental values of that program as designed by the current head coach. And I think, underneath that is also the individual one. um, just because not every one person is the same person, and not every one person comes from the same household, from the same part of the world as everyone else. So I think there's always going to be work in how does this person fit into our culture? Because I think personally that looks different student athlete to student athlete. It's not to say that we need a uniform act of it all looks the same, but we're all together for the same mission and the same role, right? So if our culture is going to be that we put our nose in the ground and we work at it and we're fierce competitors, then we're going to find the best fierce competitor inside of Jane Doe. And what does that look like for Jane Doe? But with the understanding that we are all together, we all have the same mission. If that does that touch on everything?
Yeah, that is great. And does your university, and again, if it's not a compliant issue, you can tell me so, but do you guys post your mission and vision? I mean, I came from corporate America where there was a vision, mission, and goals, and I literally did that with a 10 and under team. So, I kind of brought those fundamentals into coaching way back when. I just wondered if the college coaches have that kind of depth of creating that kind of vision and mission, and do they do that for your program? Or, do you just do that individually?
Yeah, we definitely do a little bit of both. I mean, if you walked into my office, you would see the things that kind of matter to me up on my walls. I like to surround myself with the standards so that we never forget them, and our mission to do so. And then our locker room is filled with what we feel like our culture is and should be every day. I think for compliance issues, I am not going to go into detail about what they are, so it's not like I'm trying to sell a program. But like we have like a little pyramid, and every layer of the pyramid has like our culture and our goals, and we talk about them every time. And every month we pick the person who represented that culture well, and they get a T-shirt with like a fun logo on it, and all the student athletes vote on it and say why. Yeah, the culture is very important here. We like to do everything around it within reason and within appropriateness.
Fantastic. And Hunter, what are your thoughts?
Kind of piggybacking off Josh a little bit. So I've been at two universities, excuse me, and trying to flip a culture, if you will. And my biggest thing is, you know, let's say we're in our 8 hours and our hitting time starts at 3:45. Like a big thing for me is like I need you to be warmed up and ready to go by 3:45 so we can start that time at 3:45 so we don't eat into like 15 minutes of us stretching, getting warm. So, at Georgia Tech and UIW it was more of, you know, be early, be prepared, and get ready to do a job. Kind of what Josh, I'm echoing Josh a little bit, but it was all about like, are you a hard worker? Because there's a lot of, you know, a wide variety of athletic kids, but are you able to work harder than, say, like competing against Florida State right now? Are you working harder than the kid at Florida State right now? And that's kind of how we measure ourselves. Is you might be more talented than me, but I'm going to outwork you. And that's how we've had success this year offensively. Is like we're willing to outwork people. Um, and like a great story I have was when I was at UIW. I saw a student athlete that's there right now hit a pop fly to the second baseman, and she ran as hard as she could from first base, like from the batter's box to first base to second base, even though it was an out, clear as day. But that to me signals, okay, that's a kid that wants to push themselves, and no matter the outcome, they're still going to work hard. And so that for me is something I look for when we're talking about building a culture. Is like, are you willing to put in the effort to make yourself that much better during the time where no one else is watching? Um, and that's big for me. And that kid is now a starting catcher at my previous university, just because I saw the kid run out a ball from home plate and try to get to second base on a routine fly ball. It's something that I definitely look at. Like, that to me is culture. Like, I'm willing to outwork and put in more effort than you're going to give me than, say, a kid from Florida State.
Love it. And the next question kind of bleeds into a little bit of your answers, but I do want to give you a chance to elaborate on it. And we'll start back with you, Hunter, so we can just rotate this around. But how much time and conscious mind are you actually placing into building a team chemistry, not just the individuals, but, and you mentioned, identifying the one student athlete and building that. But, is it something you do daily, weekly, or is it just, at will?
It's definitely almost daily. We call it the gold standard because our colors are gold and navy blue, so we call it the gold standard. What we do is who we are, and what we want to achieve offensively is, we're never out of the fight. We always say, you're never out of the fight. Keep punching. We have another saying called jackets after dark. We've done some crazy stuff after nightfall, so we just call it jackets after dark. But that's our culture. Like, you may punch us, but we're going to punch back. That's something that, during the fall, as we build up into the spring, is like, all right, you're down 2 runs, bottom of the seventh. Here's the here's the scenario. I want you to build on this, and that's kind of how we build our culture. Is we're never out of the fight offensively. That's kind of how we do our thing, and yeah, it's just it's never ending. Like, if you're not coaching it, you're allowing it to happen, and that's a big thing for me. Is like, every swing should have a purpose, and one of the things I got kind of lackadaisical was, I was allowing things to happen, and those would bleed over to the game. So, like, I'm very, like, as we're hitting, like, we are swinging with a purpose. If we're not, then we're not swinging. Because my biggest thing is, like, if you're not coaching it, then you're allowed it to happen. So I just try to find that boundary. It's like every day it's a culture fight. And it's not a negative. It's just, this is the standard. Do you meet that standard?
Excellent. I love the detail behind it too. Josh, what do you say?
So I think, we have very similar uh, proponents to how we, develop our team culture in that way. I will say before I dive into team culture, um, we emphasize a lot on our team culture as, the sum of how we take care of Texas State softball. It's not the sum of everyone's personalities. And we encourage everyone to be individuals. But again, when you have a team of 30 people, not one individual is going to work best or even necessarily like another individual. So we really, hone in on the fact of we're all here for the same mission. You're adults. It's unrealistic to say that you need to be best friends with everyone on this team. But when we're out there and we're doing things together, you know that there is a mutual respect. And that is a part of the team culture as well. I think a lot of times people get into this and they either try to be friends with everyone and then kind of get lost in the shuffle because, well, I don't want to take so and so side, but whatever, and then they end up just not standing for anything at all, period. Or it goes the other way where they're not trying to be friendly or kind of being like, well, I don't like so and so and blah 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 blah. Like, it's not real life to anticipate or to expect everyone to get along. When you're an adult and you're working at a job, you may not agree with your boss, you may not agree with your coworkers, but again, you're all there for the same mission. So, you don't really have a lot of that problem at this level, I feel, but it is something that we talk about a lot is you may not like each other, but you will respect our mission. And if that's not something you want to, be a part of, and if that's not, the kind of style for you, then let's talk about what your options are, but that is something that is, I think, important to understand is if you can have respect and develop respect for what the mission is and respect other people and just say, you know what, that doesn't, I think you're kind of annoying maybe, but I love that you love this team so much, and I can respect that, and let's go win together. So again, we do a
Perfect.
lot of that. A lot of the similar stuff that Hunter says.
Mhm.
Our acronym is PRIDE, so we talk about perseverance, respect, integrity, all that kind of stuff, the discipline. And we go in and out, and we harp on it a lot. We bring back alumni to share the stories of our rich, history and our rich culture and what it means to be a Bobcat, and go and do community service and all that kind of stuff. So we really harp on how we do one thing is how we do everything, with the intention of we all need to have the same mission, and we all cannot expect it to look the same, but we will respect the people who are on board and doing what's best for Texas State softball.
Love the detail there, and how you've interwoven all of that into the different things you do. So you both have had a significant amount of time in the sport. Josh, I'll go back at you. What has changed over the years? Have you seen some changing going on? I mean, we've had a couple rough years with 2020 and the portal and all different things coming in. Has that changed some of the culture building emphasis?
I think it absolutely has. I think that, and I hate to say like with the inclusion of the portal, because I really don't mean to go there, but I really do think now the student athletes more in the past have a bigger voice and are no longer afraid of having a bigger voice, to use it on social media, to use it, to whatever they feel, they have to use it for. And I just think that, student athletes aren't just going to roll with anything anymore. I think maybe if you go 10 years ago, it was coach said to do this and we're going to do this. And it almost kind of just feels like, well, why? Why are we doing that? Which isn't a bad thing. I think we promote athletes to be curious and to understand, but it's not just the demanding coach. I don't think that works anymore, I guess, in my opinion. There needs to be, understanding and knowledge of each other, and a mutual agreement and a mutual understanding of what the goal and the mission is. Even just kind of back when I played sports, and like I have a younger sister who is a class of 2025 athlete as well. And just kind of when I was coaching her some, and the questions she had, they didn't just do it. You know, they had questions, why? Well, why does this matter? When I feel this way, why is this more important than how I feel right now? And I think that's really powerful, and I think there's a real powerful aspect to that dynamic and the growth, and the ownership athletes are taking for their career. So I think it's made coaches have to be more flexible, because if I want to make sure that this is taken care of appropriately, then I'm going to listen to my athlete, period. And this is how this is going to work. And if I want to, to make it here, and or if I want this to be a positive experience, or if I want this to be an experience that, you know, works for both of us, then I'm going to bend to that. I think that we've seen a lot of big stories and things of people who haven't and just kind of stuck to their guns. And some people, ride that ship out and leave the career, and some people, adjust and make do, and adjust to the new kind of wave of athletes that are coming around. So I do think it has changed. I think COVID and people talking about mental health and there being lots of conversation has changed how the sport has worked for sure, especially with team culture.
Awesome. And Coach Hunter, what do you think?
Spot on with Josh. I don't think it's a negative in the sense of student athletes, especially at Georgia Tech, are smarter than I'll ever be. So when I'm telling them to change their swing mechanics, they want to know why. And it's not a negative, it's just they're trying to understand something. And so you need to be able to have knowledge in that, this is why we're doing it. And I think what you're going to see is those coaches that don't have that answers to those questions are going to start to fall back out of the D1 rank, in my opinion. You'll see more, more positive outlooks than negative. Um, but I don't think it's a negative that kids they're not challenging you. They're just trying to understand the way you're teaching it or why we're teaching it. Like,
I
what's
agree.
the
I just want to
positive?
tag what Hunter's saying. I don't think it's a negative either. I think it's great. I think everyone should ask more why questions.
Yeah, and I think it's not like Josh just said. It's not negative. It's like, okay, why are we doing this? And if you don't have that answer for you, then you failed your players, in my opinion. Like, you don't know enough about what we're trying to do to prepare your student athletes for as we are playing in games, as you've got Jessica Mullins, Molly Beavers, like, this is why we're trying to do this. We're getting ready for these kids. And here's X, Y, and Z. Here's how we're going to be successful. If you don't have those answers, you know, college softball, as we're moving forward, is not going to be a place for you. As we, kind of progress into the transfer portal, like, I believe there's good and bad. Like, it might not be the perfect fit for you. Like, and that's why I always say, like, as you're 2025, 2024, like, get to know the coaching staff, make sure you're understanding what they want and your needs, and does that meet or does that conflict? And that'll save everybody a lot of headaches if it's just not the right match. In the sense of, like, I'm here to coach you hard, and if you can't handle coaching hard, then you probably don't need to be a part of Georgia Tech, or you don't need to be a part of, I don't mean to speak for Josh, for Texas State. I just know the caliber of kids he has in there. Like, Josh doesn't bring kids in that can't succeed. He's looking for something. He's looking for a mentality. If you don't have the mentality, it's not going to be a good fit. But for me, it's, as coaches and players evolve, the sport evolves, and it's not a bad thing to ask why to your college coach or to your, my challenge to you is ask your hitting coach, why am I doing this? Why am I hitting off a tee, for 30 minutes? For me, like, I don't care what you do off a tee. I want to see what you do with, like, a lot. I know a lot of kids post, hey, I hit the ball 76 and I see the velo of the pitch at 20 miles an hour. Great. That's great that you hit 76. I want to see what happens when you fail at 65 miles an hour. What's your exit velo? How many times did it take you to, like, I think failure is a part of the sport. I want to see how you adapt to failure. I want to see how you handle failure. And I think that's part of college softball as well, is failure. Like, what's your response to failure? What's your response to how you deal with things?
Love it. And
And
it
another thing,
complete. Oh,
Sherry,
go
if I
ahead. Yeah,
may,
no, please. Yes.
and on the other thing of like the asking why, and how it goes together with team culture is these kids have to understand. I think how like when coaches get frustrated or when coaches are kind of on their backs about something, why that is. Like, coach, we just won this game. I hit a home run. Why are you talking to me about my body language? Like, why are you like just finding something to nitpick? Like, no, this matters to me because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And there's needs to be more dignity maybe around how we carry ourselves on the ball field. Or, coach, why are you frustrated with me? Like, I'm tired. Like, yeah, okay. Like, I didn't jog in between reps, or I was taking a rep off. Like, my bad. But like, we're winning and we're good. You're finding something to kind of nitpick with. I think that's the biggest, ask why. I think in culture and this kid and this day and age that we're very result driven. We're playing 30 million travel ball games, a summer as someone who did, travel ball on this very result driven, very win the game, very what are my stats, very this. And then you get to somewhere that's like, hey, I'm hitting home runs. Why isn't that just enough for you? Like, why are we still having conversations about my body language or my energy in the dugout or, X, Y, and Z. So I think
No,
that kind of is a big piece of that team culture as well.
absolutely. And you're literally leading into the next question, Josh. So stay off mic here or on mic here. Is what advice do you have to these student athletes so that they can show the type of culture that they are, the kind of person they are? Because so much of this, like you mentioned earlier, they have the talent, but how do you know they fit in? So how do they maneuver when things go wrong? Give some insight there because you guys do. You're two of my favorite coaches evaluating student athletes. How do you evaluate some of this culture?
I think Hunter nailed it when he talked about how you react to failure and how you react to success, how you react to being, at the ballparks all day. How do you handle any of those things? Because college softball is hard. Being a college athlete is extremely difficult, and not necessarily because the tasks are hard, but just because it comes with the nature. You know, you may be good at school and you may be a great athlete and you may be in the best shape of your life, but that doesn't mean that waking up at 6 a.m. for weights isn't going to be easy, and how you choose to show up there at 6 a.m. isn't going to be easy either. Or playing in a ball field, or playing in a tight series when you've got an exam on Tuesday and you have 69 in the class and you really need to make a 70 to pass and you're worried about it, and it's kind of taking over your conscience, but you're trying to show up for this one at bat and you're trying to show up for other people. Like, call it like being a collegiate athlete is extremely difficult. And so whenever we're out there and we're evaluating and we're looking at those kinds of things, it's like, okay, is this all things considered, the talent, whatever that's measurable? What is this person showing me? How long is it going to take to assimilate to this culture? Because it's hard to it's hard to work on, because you're going to get through schools and there's always going to be work done, whether it's understanding our hitting plans, understanding our pitching plans, understanding how we run defense. There's going to be a physical aspect to what you're working on all the time, and there's going to be the how do I fit into this culture work all the time. And so, if you're someone who isn't resilient in the way that can handle failure or handle the hard stuff on top of playing a sport, then you're going to struggle. So, I think when we go and we evaluate, look and see, hey, you know what? She's not getting the call that she wants, but she's kind of just moving along with it. She's letting it work. Or, you know what? The other teams in the dugout and the other coaches and other people are getting a little, getting a little level 10 and kind of chirping a little bit. How do they react to that? How are they reacting to the wins, the losses? How are they handling that? What is their body language saying between games? When they're hanging out, like, just all those little things just matter. Because I will say there have been lots of times out there when we're weighing what to do or kind of where to roll with, and what talent profile is going to fit best for us, that we evaluate. Well, you know what, this kid just showed me this, and that really weighs a lot on this decision, because I know that it's going to work. It's going to work here. So I think those are all really big pieces into how you can show your culture, a culture of resiliency, a culture of wanting to get after it, and all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. And Hunter, I'm going to lead in so you can follow up on this. But you and I were sitting at a tournament once and, asked me to, get a kid to try something different. And the lack of coachability was a real issue. Maybe that'll help, detail your answer here too.
Yeah, for me, it's like, are you willing to try something different? Like, you've been your entire life, you know, you've been coached to do something. Are you willing to accept, like, hey, that's not good enough, and I need you to try this? Are you willing to fail through the process of being a collegiate softball player? As Josh pointed out, it's hard. It's not easy. There's going to be days where you got like midterms, and you got practice at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you got a midterm at 4. Are you willing to lock in for 2.5 hours on just softball and then go take your test? I think that's, for me, I look at, I know I've said this multiple times, but how you fail means more to me than how you succeed. Like, if you're a kid that strikes out and you slam your bat like that, or throw your helmet, like, that's, unless you're just an ungodly giving, like, athletic ability kid, like, you're probably off my list on that. Like, okay, so 7 out of 10 times that you fail, I know that I can't use it for the rest of the game. So I'm gonna move on to the next kid. Like, I need to see how you fail. Are you a good teammate? Are you a kid that, I struck out? I'm still gonna talk to my teammate after I strike out and tell her this is what I saw. Like, that to me is more telling than any home run. Anybody can. My biggest thing is, like, anybody can feel good when things are going great. How do you respond when things aren't going well? Like, we've got Jessica Mullins, who's, I don't mean to pick on Josh, but, like, she's carving us up. She's got a .7 ERA. Like, how do we respond to when she's carving us up? Are we going to throw our bat, throw our helmet, get all mad? Or are we going to respond positive? Like, hey, Jess is really working us that screwball into righties. Like, you need to be ready for that. Like, how you respond to me is the biggest, like, for me, the biggest recruiting point is how you deal with failure. And, you know, I think Josh hit the nail on the head. It's just like continuing to grow, continuing to progress, like understanding there's going to be hard times. Are you able to accept those challenges and then move past them and know what you're trying to accomplish? Like, that to me is what I try to find in kids.
Well, and I think that goes back to your earlier point when they ask why or what do I need to do differently, that leads them to get that information from you instead of just, pouting or accepting the failure. So that was great feedback. So I know a lot of these student athletes go through different teams, they go from high school to travel ball and sometimes different organizations. When you get a new person in, is there a way that you integrate them quickly or do they know this before they're getting recruited, or how do you handle the new student athlete on a team, and maybe direct it towards these student athletes being new with their high school team or with their travel team?
Yeah, for me, it's from an offensive standpoint is what do you do well, and then we'll adapt from there. Like, Georgia Tech before I got here had 45 home runs, and we kind of scrapped at okay, what do you do before you came to Georgia Tech? What made you great to be recruited by an ACC conference? What made you great? Get back to that, and then we'll work from there. Kind of the same thing as like I recruit for me. I don't know if this is true for Josh, but I recruit kids that have high resiliency and that want to be coached in the sense of, you know what, today wasn't my best day, but I'm going to get it the next day. Or it's okay that I don't have a great process, like an outcome right now that I want, but I know the process is going to occur. Like, I'm not going to lie, Miss Sherry, like when we started the fall, we were facing D2s, JUCOs. It wasn't that we weren't hitting, it was just we didn't get the results that we wanted. So it was like, okay, work through that process for me. Okay, so what'd you see on here? Okay, so watch back the film. What'd you get? And it was kind of just it's always evolving in the sense of every student athlete's different, like kind of what Josh is talking about. It's how you like for me, it's how you respond to that negativity. It's how you like, are you willing to put in that work to put you into the top 5 in every statistical category that D1 offers, like, or are you willing to go back to, the 180s that we were before I got here? Like, it's about a mindset. It's about like, for me, it's about competition. Like, are you willing to accept that last year wasn't good enough and you got to put in more work to understand what we're trying to get to for this year? Uh, I know school's hard at Georgia Tech. I understand that. Okay, so then what are you doing outside of here that makes you better? Are you going out partying in Atlanta, or are you going out, doing things you shouldn't be doing, or are you focused in on school, softball, and being the best team that you can? Like if those three things align, you're gonna be successful. But if they don't, you're gonna have a bumpy start or a bumpy freshman year, sophomore year. I think that's just as we mature as athletes, like understanding who we are as players and understanding like what our coaches want from us as we move through the process is really telling. Like you got to know what type of athlete you are. Okay, I may not be the most gifted, but you know what? I'm going to be the hardest working kid, and coaches are going to see that. Or if I handle failure a little bit better than the next kid, okay, coaches are going to see that. Just everything that you do at a softball field is recognized. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I'm watching it. Like if you strike out, I want to see how you react. I want to see if you hit a weak fly ball to right field. How do you react? Are you slamming your bat? Are you jogging to first base? Like, I want to see how you fail, not how you succeed, because that's 3 out of the 10 times. It's not the 7 out of 10. Like, that to me is more telling as a student athlete as you're progressing, getting recruited, than you are like, oh, I'm succeeding. Great. Okay, so when we get to college, what does that look like? So that's my biggest thing.
Love it. And Josh, I think he probably tipped you off on a few other comments here.
Yeah, for sure. From an assimilation standpoint, I know what we do a lot of is we have like our Bobcat buddies. So we'll assign an upperclassman with a freshman, and they spend a lot of time together. They go get coffee, they assimilate. We really make sure that the upperclassmen understand that when we're in practice and when we do things like, hey, they're underneath you, like you need to make sure they understand before we can move on, right? Because like us coaches, of course, we're going to try to break it down and teach them, and let them know the best of the capabilities of how we do things here. But we also can't move too slow as coaches, right? We can't move too slow. We can't wait for the freshmen to catch up necessarily. But if everyone's engaged and the upperclassmen are engaged, and the freshmen and the new people will do just fine. Another aspect to that is like when I bring in a new pitcher into my staff, I have I call it my just Bobcat bullpen principles. Texas State softball pitchers: 1, compete; 2, work on their craft; 3, are resilient. And that's all I need you to focus on. Is when I'm in the bullpen, when I'm working, okay, I am working and I am resilient. I am handling the new things that I'm having to do. I'm handling failure. I'm handling being tired. I'm resilient in that way that I can show up again tomorrow, not worried about, the defeats or the hard work that I just did the next day. And at the root of that, compete. So if I recruited you and I brought you here, it's because I feel like there's something you can do. There's an aspect to you that you can do well. We're going to work on those things. Yeah, maybe there are going to be things that we can do to get you to a more competitive piece, but the root of it all, you just have to compete, period. And I think that's a really good mindset to have, whether you are on a new travel ball team, whether you're in a new high school. Maybe you're going from a junior college to a different 4-year program. Is at the root of it all, if you can have respect for the people around you and show up and compete, I don't think that you're going to find a coach who's going to be displeased with what you're doing. Um, Coaches want competitors, and I think the root of this game is competition. So be a
Love it.
competitor, and show up and show regard and respect for the sport around you, and you're going to be okay.
That's fantastic. And you guys know, because I sent you our agenda, that I'm going to open the can of worms here on the next one. But so often you don't get to see these student athletes until, a certain time of year, but there's a lot going on social media. What type of things do you want to see on social media that would show you that they're building the right culture and that they're a teammate and they're doing positive things versus some of the things we all hate? So I'll let you go first, Josh.
I think again, I look at social media like the double-edged sword, but then I try not to really think of it as a double-edged sword because it shows maybe the things that work and the things that don't work. But with an open mind, also understand that I don't think it's fair for student athletes to worry too much about what they put on social media outside of the sport thing. So be yourself, be like the quirky parts of your personality, but also understand that this is, if you're using social media to market, that if there's a program or coaches that feel like that personality isn't going to work well, maybe with this hitting coach, like, oh, I just don't see that working, then maybe that's not the place for you, and that's okay. But like being authentic means that you're not going to be for everyone, and that also is okay. And understanding that in your recruiting journey as well. I think if you can display, it's kind of tough too, but talk about the things that matter to you. Show engagement with the sports. There's lots of great softball being played. Talk about a hitter you love. Talk about a pitcher you love. Talk about an infielder that you think is freaking lights out. Be a part of the community. If you're sharing your game clips, don't just share the strikeout. Share the whole at bat. Let's see, the face you made after you get the ball that you got. Or if you're going to show highlights from your bullpen, like show the time in between pitches. Do you have a routine, or are you just throwing? What does that look like? I think the more you can display the ins and outs of who you are outside of your talent, the better. Because at the end of the day, the objective matter is coaches are going to pick what they're going to pick. Period. Like you either got it or you know it in that coach's eyes, and there's not a lot of wiggle room there. So they're going to watch you play. They're going to watch all that other stuff. But if you can give insight into who you are and how you go about the little things on your social media, I think that's huge. And that goes into even like the little retweets and stuff. Like if you loved what Don Staley just said about it and you retweet it, and those are your likes, and you're seeing good positive things on culture and good things in your Twitter feed, or even if there's things that shouldn't probably be on your Twitter feed, and a coach sees that retweet, it's like, oh, do they really believe that? If they really do believe that to be true, whatever statement they just retweeted, I can see them maybe struggling in this program initially. So I think if you want to display yourself to the best capability, understand that you're curating an image, you're curating how someone is going to experience you is the best way I would say that. Is you're curating
That's
how
fabulous.
someone
Yeah.
would experience you. So yes, you can play ball and you can do all those things, but do they care about softball? I don't know. They don't really engage with everything else going on in the community, so I'm not sure about that. Or are they just kind of uploading their material? So again, it's an opportunity, like I just said, to how someone is going to experience you in the future. Because I think if you looked at my social media, like that's how you're going to experience me. I'm very lively. I love the game. I love supporting women's sports, and that's exactly like when you meet me. And I think that if you can use social media to do that for yourself, then by all means, go for it.
Fabulous. Hunter, what are your thoughts there?
Same thing as Josh. Like it's a double-edged sword, and as us coaches, we got to find that happy medium. But like in the sense of, I know when mommy and daddy are running your social media, I want to see who you really are. Kind of what Josh said. Like as a hitter, what's your routine? And he's talking it from, a pitching perspective. Like what's your after you threw a ball or you don't get that strike call, what's your demeanor? I just want to hit on that again. Is like umpires at the D1 level are right around 75, 76%. So what does that look like when you don't get, you know, let's say there's four calls, you don't get that one call. What are you going to respond back? Are you just going to talk back to the umpire? Like for me, that's like we can't do that. We can't show up the umpire. We gotta. All right, I got three more, or all right, I got two more. Like it's a mentality that you got to try to present in social media, which is hard. But another big thing, Miss Sherry, like I hate spam emails, and I can tell when it's just a spam email. Dear Coach Bunch. Well, if you know me, you would know that it's Coach Hunter. I don't go by Coach Bunch. Like, do research for me is like do research in the sense of if you're trying to email and get to know a coach, like go beyond that extra step besides just copying and pasting. Like, you really want that Texas State or Georgia Tech, like, are you diving in more than what Sammy Joe is getting? I get 150 emails a day. I'm sure Josh gets more than that. It's just like, what's going to separate yourself from X, Y, and Z? And that's, to me, is like, okay, did you put in the effort? Okay, you did put in the effort. Okay, what did you do beyond that? Like, did you address it like, hey, Coach Hunter went 1 for 3 today. Here's my 2 outs and here's my 1 home run. I want to watch that. I don't want to see, hey, Coach Hunter went 3 for 3 today with 3 singles. Great. You hit 3 singles. Like, I want to see what happens when you fail. Kind of what Josh was touching on. It's just like, you can build a certain image, but as coaches, like, we want to see what happens, at least for me, like when you fail, because this sport is a sport of failure from the offensive standpoint. It's not a negative. It's just like, hey, this is what happens. Like, I didn't get that call that I wanted. Here's how I responded. And Josh, same thing. It's like what he was talking about is like, I didn't get that strike call that I think I should have gotten, but here's the next pitch. Here's my routine. I'm a big routine person. If you watch Georgia Tech softball, we all have, not all have the same routine, but we're stepping out, we're taking a deep breath, we're trying to calm our heart rate, then we step in the box. Like, that's our routine. Like, what is your routine? Do I have to teach you a routine? Because if I do, then I got to work 2 steps backwards to go forwards. And I think all of that is important as you start to, try to find the school that you want and try to find where you fit in. It's like putting a big puzzle piece together. Like, okay, Coach Hunter's really high intensity. Do I match that? No. Okay, then Georgia Tech's probably not the spot for me. Coach Josh is really fun loving, care bearer, awesome person, outside of softball. Like, is that a spot for me? Maybe. But like, it's just finding that niche that you need to be successful as you move throughout your recruiting journey. Is like, know what you're good at, know what you're bad at, send both, put in extra effort that 300 other student athletes are going to be sending the same email or tagging us. Like, what are you going to do to stand out? And I think that as you're going through your recruiting process is understanding who you are and how you fit into that program. And it's not a negative if you're not the right fit. It's okay. Maybe, I've said, Josh, hey, you need to look at this kid. She's not a fit for me, but she might be a fit for you, and vice versa. It's not a negative. It's just like, I don't need a pitcher in this class, but here's a kid that I've seen through X, Y, and Z, and she's carved up kids. Like, you never know, just because it's not the right fit, college coaches talk to each other. I think that's the biggest, like, key to understand as you're a PSA. And as I've gone through this process as a travel ball coach and as a college coach, like, we talk to each other. We lean on each other. Like, hey, what'd you see? Like, I know Josh and I, we grew a relationship this summer. Like, I might not be able to get this kid, but you sure as heck should go get this kid. Like, understanding that college coaches talk, it's not a negative. Just be who you are. Understand positive, negatives, and just go through the recruiting process. Don't be shy. Don't be like guarded or anything. Just be who you are.
Love it. Be authentically you. As we start to wrap down, I just want to remind the audience, you guys can message me here or, put a direct tweet up there, just any follow-up questions. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up a little bit and just remind, because many of you are CSA student athletes on the line, is that we actually create a social media platform, and we come very conservative to the market because less is more. And like you said, the double-edged sword, we can't take it back. And that training is next Sunday. So our student athletes should have gotten an email today and a reminder that our annual social media platform rollout is there. And we've actually lightened some of our approach at many times, but we can't take it back once it's put out there. So it's great to hear you guys support that. And creating their brand is real important. As you're talking about being authentically you have to create a brand about who you are. And years ago in my career, read a book called Branding You, and I bet there's a million books about it now. But really, Josh, on what you were saying, developing who you are and putting that out to the marketplace. And it doesn't mean it's on Twitter. And I love how both of you said put it in email. So your emails do evolve over time. When we first get started, and of course in high school, I know you guys don't like these big long emails about your high school world, but you're edging up to come see me play. And then once you start to get attraction and you start to get to know each other, then you dig in and make it very personal and start to share that brand, because you're going to want to get to know them and they want to get to know you. And so we give a lot of advice about following you guys on Twitter, in the same that, we hope that you follow our student athletes back so that you can, tiptoe through the tulips and figure out who's going to be your style of athlete. And we also do SMART goals with them so that they're prepared to set up goals and achieving things as they move along. And it made me think of your conversation here tonight about creating more personal ones, about some maybe emotional or mindset type of trainings that they could do, to help improve, as they are getting challenged in their sports. So, final thoughts from Hunter? Any final thoughts or messages you want to give out? And then the same for you, Josh.
Yeah, I would just say, not to be a PSA, but follow Miss Sherry's ideas and her teachings. Like, I recruit highly off Miss Sherry in the sense of like I know what I'm getting when I get a CSA athlete. Um, I know what I'm looking for, and I go to Miss Sherry like, "What do you got for me?" Um, in the sense of, what do you have to offer? What are you good at? What are you not good at? Just understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. Like, hey, I might not be a great changeup hitter, but X, Y, and Z. I think is big for me, and just understanding who you are as a person outside of softball is huge as well. Like, you are a softball person maybe 20% of the time, and then outside of that, what does that look like? Like, who are you outside of softball is very, very big to me, because we do student, or not student, but student athlete check-ins every once a week. I'm going to be talking to you, and we're going to be talking everything outside of softball. I want to know who you are. So just, again, kind of what Josh said, just be authentic. Don't be scared of who you are. Embrace it. Embrace, the suck, if you will. Like, embrace failing 7 out of 10 times. Softball's hard, but it's fun, and that's what makes it great. Is the failure. Three out of 10 times, I'm gonna succeed.
Those are great final words there for you. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, for sure. I'm really big on the authenticity piece. Sherry, college coaches, your travel ball coaches, your parents, they all want to support you in your goal and your dream, of playing onto the next level. But at the end of the day, that is your journey. This game, your work ethic, the ins and outs, when you clock in, when you clock out, like those are all very personal things to you. So I think it's important that you take ownership, and I need to really understand what matters to me, and I really need to understand and take ownership of this journey. Don't just let Coach Sherry, tell coaches to recruit me and go where my dad wants me to go, or go where, X, Y, and Z says I should go, where my travel ball coach goes, and then you get there and you don't love it, or, however that looks like. Be who you are, be authentic. It's okay to not like a place. It's okay to not want to go to a place. Like, take ownership of your journey in that way. Take ownership. This game is yours and it should feel very personal to you. And on that same side of it is your game, like everything is a culture. How I do one thing is how I do everything is a culture. I have culture in the way that, I talk to strangers, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And what you want to find is, how are the everythings at this place when I go on my visit? What do they talk about a lot? What are the hot words that they're using? Are they talking a lot about winning, being leaders? Are they talking about succeeding a lot? Are they talking about having a great college experience? What is the culture there? And is that culture aligned with the culture that I want out of my next 4 years or my next 2 years? So take ownership of the piece, because I think that if you don't, and you kind of just do whatever, and then you get to the spot where you're unhappy, to some degree, there's some ownership in that of, well, you know what, I should have just stuck to my guns. This was my journey as well. Like, I needed to be an advocate for myself as well. So enjoy it. Enjoy the game of softball. Recruiting can be very stressful, but at the end of the day, if you stick to who you are and you stick to what matters to you, and you take ownership of this game, I don't think you'll have any regrets in how it goes down.
Well, you gentlemen are, of course, two of my favorites, and I just greatly appreciate your kind words and your time here today to give back to this PSAs, as you call them, prospective student athletes, and helping them find their own voice and be themselves, and find the right fit and find the right culture. I think we minimize the culture and how important it is in order to feel comfortable when you get there. So. Just appreciate you guys a bunch, not no pun intended there, Hunter. And to the student audience here, if you guys will retweet when we're done here and share it, and then invite you back next week. And if there's a specific topic you want to hear about, you want to discuss something going on for you, we love to have these topics, and we've covered a ton. You can go back and look at our collegiatesportsadvocate.com page and look at our media and just see what we've touched in the past. And we just want to hear and be able to provide to you guys what it is that you want. So thank you again, Coach Hunter and Coach Josh, and listening audience. We appreciate you, and have a great week.